Well, welcome to the early summer, end of our hiatus edition. It's been a while. I'm Jeff.
I'm Tom.
And this is a Three Old Reds Fans podcast coming to you from Tom's house this evening, not too far from our good friends at Beans in the heart of Cedarville, the famous birthplace and final resting place of Reds pitching legend Bumpus Jones. Kim's not here tonight. We'll get to that in a minute. But before that, I want to give a big Three Old Reds Fans welcome to all of our new listeners, and a big thanks to Podbean.com for giving us a huge boost. So Podbean is the website we use for publishing our podcasts, and then we put them out through lots of other places that you can find them. But they're the ones there, and so I reached out to them a while back. Probably back in February. And I said, we'd really like, what can you do to help us get in front of more people? So, because on their home pages and in the app and online, they have like featured podcasts and stuff. And they said, well, we'll put you up there for a week in May. So they did. So when we got put on there, we had 19 followers on the Podbean site. Now we have people listening other places, but just there we had 19 followers. How many do you think we have now?
90.
622.
Wow.
So just by being in front of people's eyes like that, it's really helped. And I don't know if we're still up there or not. Maybe we've earned our way to stay on there now. I'm not sure. But our last episode is now by far the most listened to. We're now in 25. We've now been downloaded in at least, according to their analytics, 25 countries.
What's our biggest country besides the U.S.?
Might be Australia now.
Australia?
Might be Australia.
Here we go.
United Kingdom's got some. And 37 states, including Alaska and Hawaii.
Amazing.
Couple downloads apiece. We got some of those upper Midwest states we're missing. One of the New England states. I forget which one.
Hopefully not Missouri.
Connecticut's pretty
We don't
big.
really want anyone in Missouri to listen to us.
Well, we have Missouri. Louisiana we don't have yet. It's like the only southern state we haven't gotten. So anyway, it's going pretty well. So
hey, that's great.
Yeah. So
well, welcome 600 and some people.
622. I don't know if they'll all listen to this next show, but we can hope. We hope they do. As a subscriber to our podcast, thanks again for being one of the most loyal Reds fans ever. And so we'd love more ratings on the iTunes Apple Podcast app. Those places you can give ratings and leave reviews, and you can do comments to us on Podbean. Also, Twitter. We're at Three Old Reds Fans on Twitter, and we're on Facebook too. You can search Three Old Reds Fans and find us on Facebook. So we did put out a call late this afternoon. This is Tuesday. The Reds are playing Game 1 right now of their 2-game series with the Indians. Where they in about the 4th inning, scoreless so far, and so I put the call out. So I got like a couple questions on Facebook. We got 2 or 3 comments here on Twitter, and we'll get to those as we go through the show, as those topics and stuff become relevant to what we're talking about. So it's been a while since we got to do this because they're traveling, right? So I went to Africa for a couple weeks and got to see some cool stuff.
Yes, you did. And there seems to be a trend with this group.
Yeah, Kim's in Africa. Well, he's on his way back now. He's probably en route to France right now. He's going to spend a couple days in Paris on his way back from Eswatini, formerly known as Swaziland. I was in Kenya.
So 2 of the 3 Old Reds fans went to Africa. And I feel really left out.
Yeah. Yes. Well, reminds you of a Toto song, right?
I went to Washington, D.C. Is that the same?
Yeah. Well, then I got back, and I was like, we should do a show. And then you're like, I'll be in Washington all week. And I'm like, okay, well, then we'll wait next week. And now Kim's on his way back, but we couldn't wait any longer. We had to get together and do something.
But you know what, Jeff? No matter where we go, we're still following the Reds.
Yeah, and I was disappointed. I was over there. And of course, the Reds are playing like through the middle of the night, starting late at night when I'm over there. And we were busy every day with the work I was doing over there up early. And so I didn't really, but I could follow where I was staying. We had good Wi-Fi, and I could follow on the app, and I could look the next morning and see how the game went. I could watch the little highlights on the Reds, on the MLB app. And Now, I couldn't watch the games on Fox Sports Go. It wasn't available to watch on the other side of the world. I could open the app, but it wouldn't let me do it. So, anyway.
Hey, guys.
Hey. Yes, you couldn't
edit all that out.
No, I can edit it out, or I can leave it in.
You can leave it in. I'm much better than Kim Jennerette anyway.
I'm definitely leaving that in. So anyway,
I asked you, Jeff, when you were in Africa, what did everybody in Kenya think about the situation with the Reds? And you didn't seem to get much reaction.
I didn't get much reaction. They didn't know what I was talking about.
Hard to believe.
Hard to believe. Yeah,
really hard to believe.
Baseball is not really a sport played in that part of the world. So they like their soccer or football. They like their rugby. They played the school we were staying at. They have volleyball and basketball teams, so forth. But anyway. So we're here. Crucial. I think it's a crucial 4 weeks leading into the All-Star break.
Yeah, it really is.
So they're 8 games back going into tonight. 7 games back in the wild card. They're on this pretty difficult road trip. They started out 2-3 going through St. Louis and Philadelphia. Now they got these 2 in Cleveland. To win these 2 games in Cleveland would be huge for them, I think. And then
they haven't won a series in quite some time.
No, they're just sort of that. I think going into tonight they were 8-9 over their last 17 games. So they're sort of like, win a couple, lose a couple, win one, lose one. There's no winning streak.
Right.
Not like the Dayton Dragons right now, who were just mired in last place in the Midwest League, and now they've won 8 straight. And they're not. They added a couple guys, but all of a sudden they're playing and winning. And that typically happens for a team. Almost everybody has like a nice winning streak.
You have to,
but these guys can't get one. Save their lives. So.
Because it's the way we're hitting the ball. Of course, that's the big theme.
Yeah, it is. It is. So they come home they got 6 at home with Texas and Cleveland. Texas and Houston, excuse me. And then they go to Milwaukee for 3. They go to the Angels for 2. And then they get a 9-game homestand going into the break. If they can have a winning streak on that homestand and get themselves around 500, then we start thinking about, are we maybe buyers at the All-Star at the trade deadline? Or if this next 4 weeks doesn't go well, are we going to be sellers again?
Yeah, how close do you think we need to be in order to be buyers? We're in enough contention. Do we have to be within 5 or 6 games?
Probably, and are you talking wild card? Are you talking division or both? But right now it's 8 in one and 7 in the other. So it's going to probably
borderline.
It's probably going to be, if it's 5 in one, it's probably going to be 6 in the other or something like. It's probably going to could stay that way, And so that's sort of the thing. And so, like I said, we put those calls out and.
What were some of the questions from our mass of followers?
So a guy named Jeff, he's at Jeff Carr, that's Jeff with 3 Fs, and he actually hosts a podcast called Locked On Reds podcast, and that website I wrote for some last year, but I haven't had the time to do it since. And his question is, you're the Reds GM, and the Braves just approached you with an offer of a top 5 prospect in their system for Raisel Iglesias. Do you take it? Why or why not?
That's a great question.
It's a great question. Now, if they just approached me today, I'm not taking it today.
I agree.
But
later in the year,
if we're a seller
right
at the trade deadline, do you trade Raisel Iglesias?
I do, because I got a Garrett as a guy that can take his place.
Yeah, he's been
lights out.
Left-handers especially. Yeah. So you say that. So then. Another guy, another one of our Twitter followers chimed in on that, and that's UK Reds MLB, and he lives in the UK. He says, I would politely, parentheses, because I'm British, decline 2 more years of control and an affordable price for a reliable reliever with the ability to go multiple innings. So,
but you have more than that with Amir.
Yeah. I guess it's also that, who is that prospect they're offering?
Yeah, is it a pitcher?
Is it right? Is
center fielder?
Yeah, where's he fit into your lineup in the next year or two at the most?
Yeah.
So I think in general, I mean, I was on record. I don't remember what your opinion was about it. I think you were probably a similar opinion, but in the off season when they were making deals and stuff and things came up, and should Iglesias be a guy you trade? I mean, I was like, well, yeah. I mean, if you can make your team better. Because you got other guys you can turn into a closer, most likely. I mean, yeah, I'd listen for sure. I mean, were you of that? Were you that bent too?
Don't you remember our friend John Helmick and I? We were ready to trade everybody for a pitcher. But a prospect is different.
A prospect is different.
A prospect is different than a pitcher.
Yeah.
A known quantity pitcher. If you were asking me if we trade a solid starting pitcher for our closer, I'd say in a heartbeat. For somewhere else in the infield or outfield,
Yeah, but who's going to do it? Nobody's going to give you that.
I know.
So that's like, right, you're going to get that prospect. Is it that, or do you need a couple guys? I don't think you bail on them yet until you see how the season develops, because they're still possibly in the hunt. Yeah.
As crazy as that sounds.
Yeah.
If we start hitting like we did last year, all of a sudden we're in contention. Right?
Well, I think so. Because the pitching isn't as hot as it was early.
Yeah, but we're third in the National League.
But it's still pretty good.
Excuse me, second in the National League.
In ERA.
Yeah.
So we're still good. We still have a really good pitching staff. And
really, we're better than good.
Yeah,
at this point, we're great.
Yeah, and so and Alex Wood is starting to work out.
Right.
Good signs, and of his back seems to have good signs. So I mean, it's like
we're second in the National League in almost every category.
Yeah.
And the only team above us is the Dodgers, who are like a super team.
Yeah.
So we're great pitching wise.
Yeah. So I would say to Jeff that maybe
politely,
I would say maybe. It's a wait and see. I'm like, I know we want things to happen and we want to talk about stuff and have an opinion now, but you don't do something till you have to.
Yeah.
Even when you're coaching a game, you don't really do something till you have to. Am I going to change my defensive alignments? Am I going to change pitchers? Well, I'm going to change them when I have to.
Yeah.
I'm going to pitch hit when I have to. I'm going to bunt when I have to. Whatever. And so you just have to do that. So I would say if they're completely out of it, I certainly listen to offers. And I would not be, and if I thought, that's a pretty good sounding trade, I'd be okay with it. But
especially if it was maybe a top prospect that was a starting pitcher.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Because we traded for some pitching, but Roark could be gone next year. Wood could be gone. And you never just haven't, exactly right, you never have enough. So, and I think, I don't know what Kim would say about it, but if that's, as that time approaches and we get together here again in 2 or 3 weeks, I'm sure that'll be more of a discussion, because we'll see what's going to happen over these next couple of weeks leading into that final homestand before the break, and we'll start to have more and more of an idea. So.
A big discussion for us here has to be, how long do you wait on these hitters? And I think you have a question related to that.
Dalton Spear at Daily Dalton, he says, will Puig's offense start catching fire? Seems like he swings at everything. And it does. It does seem like he swings at a lot of pitches that are not going across the plate.
And some of his swings look awful.
Will his offense catch fire? I mean, if he's going to end up having the kind of year he usually has, yes.
He's streaky, though.
I don't know. I mean,
it may catch fire for a week or two,
yeah.
But then he's streaky, so it would level off. I don't know. I mean, what we see tonight's hitting 207.
Yeah, it's that, and I mean, all of his numbers are bad. His slash line going into tonight is 207, 252, 378. I mean, his slugging percentage is lower than like what Joey Votto's on base percentage usually is. He's hit 11. You look at the 11 homers, 9 stolen bases, and you would think, okay, I thought he'd hit a few more homers in Cincinnati, but he's stolen 9 bases,
right,
so forth. But then when you start looking at his rate stats, it's just bad. His WRC plus is 60. I mean, that's 40% worse than the average player in the National League right now. I mean, that's hideous. I mean, it's not what we expected. Yeah, he's done a lot in the community, gotten involved.
Yeah, yes.
And I like that. I don't know if that's distracted him from playing baseball or not. I don't know. I think in the Dodger lineup, he wasn't seen as really the key guy in the lineup ever.
Right.
And he comes here, and there's a high expectation that he will be like that. He'll be that cleanup hitter and bat behind Suarez and so forth, and knock in a lot of runs and hit 260, 280, something like that. Hit a lot of home runs in the smaller ballpark, and it just hasn't happened.
He's got a negative WAR right now.
Yeah. What is it? What is it?
Negative 0.6.
Yeah, I mean, it's just terrible. I mean, he's not helping them.
He's the worst right fielder in the league right now, according to stats.
I mean, he hasn't hurt him on defense. That helps you win games, but offensively, he is not helping them win games. I mean, a couple times, once or twice this year, he's had a big hit, and that's just not. That's not enough.
You get to the point where what are you going to do? Do you stick with him?
Well, Bell, a week ago, said we still see him as a center, as a huge part of our offense.
How long do you do that?
This is what you have to say until you bench him. So I don't know. I mean, that's the political thing to say. You're not going to go out and dog him in the press. However, you're right. How long? Now, I gave him Sunday off.
Because if you stick with people like that hitting 200 for too long, then it shows that you don't care about winning, right?
It can, I mean,
and that was supposed to not be where we were this year.
Right?
We're playing to win this year. Remember the front office saying that. I get it. You got to stick with people in April and May, but now we're in June.
We're in June, and if he hasn't turned it up and showing signs come July, you really got to start thinking.
Right.
Like that was sort of the leash Duvall had last year, and then they traded him.
Right.
So Puig's a guy that could go at the break, at the trade deadline. Excuse me. He's a guy. He's a guy that could go. I mean, you could see people thinking, change the scenery, come in.
Power off the bench.
That or we got a guy hurt and we need somebody. I mean, look what Jay Bruce fell into this week.
Right.
McCutchen tears his ACL on a rundown the day after they trade for Jay Bruce to be a bench player for him, and Jay Bruce is National League Player of the Week last week.
I know. He's Mr. Streaky.
Yeah. He might do this for about 2 more weeks,
right,
and then not do much. But I mean, I was never. I don't think I was ever a big fan of trading Jay Bruce, but I like that guy, and I thought even with his streakiness, he helped them win a lot of games. So, but
okay. So related to this conversation,
that's another story.
We've got a bunch of guys hitting between 200 and 250.
Yeah,
right now.
Yeah, the batting average is just one sign, and that's an indicator. Because when you start looking at some of the other stats, they're not very good either.
Well, that's what I was going to say. So let's take it the other way. Which ones do we stick with?
Well, here's one thing I looked at. I looked on Fangraphs, and I sorted by WRC Plus, which, as we know, is it's a stat that doesn't assume all hits are equal,
right? And
it doesn't assume all run production situations are equal. And it adjusts for park, ballpark things and so forth. And that WRC Plus, that 100 number, it's a constantly moving kind of internal number. It's the average for the league at any one time.
And who's got the best in the league right now?
Who's got the best? Well, probably the Dodgers.
Yelich, Bellinger,
yeah,
and Josh Bell from the Pirates.
Right, yeah, those guys are
just killing them.
They're the MVP candidates right now. Yeah. So those 3 guys are great. The Reds are, as a team, they're like, third from the bottom in the league, 81, which is 19% worse than average. And the top team was, the Dodgers at 114, I think you said?
That's right.
So when you look at the Reds, there's only 4 current Reds. Now, Philip Urban has a good WRC plus, but he only batted like 20 times. And they sent him back down, so I'm not really considering him. But of the current Reds, only 4 current Reds are above average at that stat. So right now the Reds have 4 position players that are performing above the National League average in that offensive production. Yeah, Suarez is at 114.
114.
And then
or 115.
115.
I don't see.
No, Dietrich's much higher. Dietrich's like
Winker's at 94.
Dietrich's like 140 something. Casali is like 112 or something like that. Senzel is 106. So, and when you think about it, Suarez is the only guy that's really been an everyday player all season on that list. Dietrich is probably a 3/4 of the time guy.
Right.
I don't know exactly, but I think that's a pretty good guess. Casali's the backup catcher, and you would talk about a guy that maybe should be playing on more than the other guy right now.
He's hitting 290.
Yeah, his offensive production has been good. His batting average, everything has been good, and Barnhart's not been good.
Although if you look at the Fangraphs, those guys don't have enough at bats to even play.
Well, yeah. Well, I was on just the Reds page earlier, and it showed them all. And
for people that qualify, it's only Suarez.
It's only Suarez because Senzel's only played
Right.
almost exactly half the games, right? Maybe within 1 or 2 games of exactly half the games now. So, so we got one guy who's been playing every day all season who's above average in the National League right now. That's sort of like you can look at a million numbers, but when you look at that, it's like, oh, well, no wonder.
Right.
That's all I need to know, So it's surprising. If you'd have told us our pitching was what it would be, we'd think, oh, we'll be in first place.
Second in the league in pitching?
Oh, we'll be 10 games over 500.
That's right. Now, okay, so that's why you and I had a discussion earlier about, 1 or 2 guys struggle. That happens, right? But for a whole team to struggle like this, what is going on? Is this something systemic?
Yeah.
Is it something we know that Bell brought in more analytics than previously.
Coach.
So, in this new hitting coach, did he do something in the heads of these guys? It really makes me wonder, because for this to be a team thing, this is a team thing.
Yeah,
makes me think it's coaching. And I'm usually one not to go to coaching.
No, I agree. These guys are professionals. They ought to be able to perform even if they're not. They didn't even all have to have their best seasons.
Right.
If they were all just sort of average.
100. WRC plus 100s.
Yeah, if they were all pretty average, you'd flip our record.
Right.
But they're not. It could be. I guess it's a question we can't answer. We can speculate.
There hasn't even been any rumors of that or anything, right? No one talking about it.
Well, no, and of course the people with the team aren't going to talk about it.
Yeah.
What will they'll never talk about it really. What the proof of what they think will be determined in personnel decisions. Whether it's, do they keep the same hitting coach around? Do they do this and that?
You hate to say it, but with this performance into June, the first guy to go would be the hitting coach.
Well, could be. That's been done. I'm sure they have their own opinions on whether it's his fault or it's just bad luck. I don't know. I'm sure they have their opinions on that. So
I'm sorry, I just don't see this as a luck thing.
No, I don't either.
It can't be. It's just too big of a coincidence. And so I got to believe it's some kind of philosophy or approach that they've taken this year that they obviously didn't last year.
Yeah. Now, they've obviously missed Scooter Gennett, who's starting his rehab. But I don't think you can say, well, if Scooter Gennett was playing,
right,
everybody'd be hitting.
If we had Schebler in the outfield and no Puig, that would have made a difference.
No, because Schebler was terrible.
Right.
He's playing in Louisville.
I'm just saying about the differences between last year and this
year. Yeah. We wouldn't, if we had Billy Hamilton, we wouldn't be any worse.
Yeah.
Now Senzel has been much more productive playing center field and leading off.
Do you agree that he's a better replacement than Billy? Like if Billy was out there?
Oh yeah.
I think so too.
Yeah, he's hitting He's slashing 273, 333, 460, all better than Billy ever did.
Right.
He's got 4 homers. He's stolen 5 bases. His WRC plus is 106, which is better than everyone on the team, but Dietrich, Suarez, and Casali right now.
Right.
So I mean, he's performing very well for a rookie. You can't complain about what he's doing as a rookie.
Especially throwing him in center field and leadoff.
Yeah.
As a rookie. I mean, come on.
Yeah, he's adjusted well. I think I saw a ball hit his glove coming in. He probably should have had one night, but he doesn't look out of place out there when I've seen him play. He looks like, he knows what he's doing. I heard him on Jim Day has a podcast. Have you ever listened to that?
I listened to one.
Really good stuff. Which one did you listen to?
It was one of the first ones.
With like Marty?
No.
Well, have you heard the Sean Casey one?
No.
That
would be great.
You have to listen, and this is for everybody out there. Jim Day's podcast. He's done Marty Brenneman. He did 2 parts with Bronson Arroyo that was good. He's done Brantley. He did Senzel, who I just heard. He's done Lorenzen, and he did Sean Casey, and it is a riot. I won't spoil it for anybody, but Sean Casey told 4 or 5 stories that I was laughing out loud, and I think Jim Day had tears in his eyes interviewing him. I mean, he was laughing so hard, and he had heard some of the stories before. So that one is a must listen to. But anyway, Senzel came across as a real down-to-earth guy. If you listen to that, he had some struggles growing up, family struggles. He lived 2 years in England when he was like going into middle school.
Huh.
Didn't get to play baseball for 2 years when he was like middle school age. Learned to play rugby and stuff like that. Field hockey at a boarding school over there, and then moved back to Knoxville, which is where he grew up, and played in college. He was going to go to Georgia and play. Then the coach got fired, and so then he ended up back at UT. But yeah, he's comes across as a real down-to-earth kid who really wants to work and really wants to be good. And if he seemed, that's one thing about these shows are nice because it's just those 2 guys sitting around and people open up. They know Jim. Jim's an easy guy to talk to, and I think they're really telling the truth. And so I think Senzel he's gonna be a really good player. I don't know how good. I'm not predicting he's a Hall of Famer or a 10-time All-Star, but I think he's going to be a really good everyday player. And he thinks in the near future he's in center field for a while. He says, I'm not saying that I won't play infield ever again, but for now I really feel for a good while this is where I'm going to be.
Well, when you look at the Reds, I mean, the only chances if Scooter would go somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Well,
that's another thing. What's Dietrich going to continue to do the rest of this season?
Where's he going to go?
Because if Dietrich continues, and he's slumped a little bit here the last few games, but if he has a good second half of the season, I mean, he and Jeanette are kind of the same guy a little bit. Do you need them both? Do you keep them both? And they've got Dietrich at least 1 year of control for him while Scooter's a free agent.
Well,
I can see Scooter going and Dietrich staying.
You're not going to like this, but if Winker and Puig aren't producing,
you
got to put them in one of those spots.
Well, you might. You
really have to.
You might. I don't know what Winker is going to do long term. I think sometimes the guys don't really break out for a year or two of playing, and he hasn't even played really a full season of Major League Ball. But
if you want to win right now,
then
you got to make decisions like that.
I agree.
And I think we're in that stage. We're into June now. I think you have to start making some of those tough decisions.
Well, there's certainly, if Puig doesn't really get it together, they're not going to re-sign him. Yeah. There's no way.
Do you start him the rest of the year?
They'll bring up Taylor Chamel and put him in right field or left field before they do that.
That's a great point.
I would think that's when you start doing that kind of stuff. But
yeah.
Anyway, so
we were going to talk about a trivia question.
Yeah. You had a trivia question. Let's do that now, and then we'll give the answer at the end. So what? You laid this one on me the other day, and I got two. I was 2 or 3.
I was impressed,
but I couldn't think. The third one, I was like, that sounds a little familiar. But
I was enjoying the super regionals for college baseball this week, and because I'm a northerner, I always rooting for the northern teams because there are so few of them.
Oh yeah.
And there was only one northern team in the super regionals, and that was one of our hated foes in life, the University of Michigan.
Yes.
But even though I'm still one that will still root for them.
It's baseball. I don't care. If it's football, I won't. But baseball, I don't care.
So anyways, I was rooting for Michigan, and they made it. They made it to the College World Series.
Well, didn't they upset somebody big in the previous round?
Number 1 seed UCLA.
UCLA, yeah, to get there.
So they won 2 out of 3 against them. And that's the first time they've been in the College World Series since 1984. They were actually in the College World Series 83 and 84, both years. And an interesting trivia piece is there's 3 members of that Michigan team that went to the College World Series in 83 and 84 that also won a championship with the Cincinnati Reds. And the question in the 1990
World
Series. So the question would be, what 3 Reds players also played on those Michigan College World Series teams?
Okay. And we will do our best to remember to give that answer.
Yeah, that's right. We've forgotten that stuff in the
past. I'll type it here on my notes right now so we don't forget. I'll say trivia answer. There we go, and then I won't forget it. So, all right, good. So, let's see, where are we going next here? We talked about this crucial stretch coming up. We talked about Senzel. We talked about Puig. Talked about the overall hitting and just not there.
Yep.
I think we've liked what we've seen at Castillo. Obviously, Sonny Gray has pitched well. He's gotten no run. He's gotten very little run support. Tanner Roark has been Tanner Roark. He's what I thought he'd be.
Yeah,
he's solid. He's not spectacular. He's not giving up 7 runs in the first 2 innings either. Molly's been, about what I thought he'd be. He's kind of in his second year. He doesn't have it all figured out yet, but he's not. He's okay. And DeSclafani, if he could quit giving up home runs, he hasn't been as bad. The funny thing is, if DeSclafani, you look at his numbers. If you'd have put that in the rotation the last couple of years, it'd have been like our ace. But they're not great, but they still need to be better. Yeah. He needs to be better. So the question is, if and when Alex Wood gets healthy, whose spot is he going to take? And it's got to be DeSclafani or Malley.
Right, one of those two.
And I think we've been asked that question. Well, whose spot's he going to take? Well, let's see what happens. Where are we standing when he's healthy?
Competition is a very good thing.
Where's he going to be? What's the status of everybody else? And then we can make that decision.
So
I think it's likely to be one of them.
Amir Garrett obviously has been lights out, 1.6 ERA.
Yeah.
Castillo, 2.3. We all know how great he's doing. Iglesias he's had another solid year.
He struggled a little early on.
But he's still 2.7 ERA.
Yeah, he's got it together.
For a closer, that's really good.
Yeah.
Lorenzen actually has been okay, 3.2.
Mm-hmm.
And Jared Hughes at 3. I mean, you go down this these solid staff.
Right. Have they had nights where they gave up some runs out of the bullpen? Of course, it happens.
Yeah, right.
Have they blown a couple games? Yes. It's the offense.
Right.
I mean, pitching is going to cost you now and then, but the offense is costing us so many nights. It's like tonight we got this game on and Castillo's giving up a home run to Santana. They're down 1-0, and they're on the road with Bauer pitching, and you're thinking, golly, that might be enough to beat us tonight.
Exactly. I was thinking the same thing.
You're thinking, we can get it's 1-0.
You better not let this other run in, or we're in trouble.
Exactly. You think that. So that's what was surprising about Sunday, where they got down 3-1 and came back to win. They had an inning, pieced together some stuff, and all of a sudden they win a game.
They got those 2 clutch hits.
The clutch hits, and then the bullpen was really good.
Joey seems to be hitting better lately.
Joey is. He hit a home run the other day. Still not hitting the power that he used to, but maybe he's batting second. Maybe his approach is a little different, but he is hitting the ball harder, and he's had some balls find some holes lately, which has to happen to be hot. So that's a good sign. That's a good sign. What's he up in the 250s, 260s now?
Yeah, I haven't looked, but I
something
think
like
he is,
that.
yeah.
So that's he's coming along. So so let's look at on Facebook. Michael Cooper asks, at what point do you start selling pieces? What do you do with Puig, Iglesias, Dietrich, etc.? And we've talked about that some. And I think, again, at what point? I think once you hit the All-Star break, you know whether you're a buyer.
Yeah, you got to get through the All-Star break.
You got to get there, and you know. And we may, next 2 weeks go really bad. We might know sooner, but I think at that point you really kind of know.
So
because the trade deadline, the trade deadline is like 3 weeks after that. So
we talked about this last year. How in the last maybe 5 years, the Reds have had a stretch where they've just fallen apart. That's happened every year, and it seems to be in that June or July.
They had it the first 9 games as well.
Well, that's true.
It's just they haven't been able to completely overcome by any means. But you're right. You're absolutely right. That could happen. That's why I'm like kind of crossing fingers and toes and everything else.
Although pitching is like defense in basketball. It shows up every day, and so you avoid some of those terrible spots with that.
I think so because they're going to win some 2-1 games,
Right.
And they might win 2-1 tonight, Castillo and might go 6 or 7 and turn it over, and bullpen's good.
Bullpen does what they're
somebody
doing.
And Dietrich hits a 2-run homer or something, and we win the game. That could happen. So I think I think that sort of answers that question. I think Dietrich is not a guy that gets traded. Depending on what Scooter does. Depending on what Scooter looks like when he comes back. Because like I said, I can see Scooter letting him go and keeping Dietrich around.
He's such a valuable utility player. He plays everywhere.
He plays so many positions.
How valuable is that?
That's why probably Van Meter's the guy that goes down when Scooter comes back, because all the other guys are more versatile than he is. He's just an outfielder. Farmer can play multiple positions. Dietrich can play multiple positions. That's exactly why. So, another guy, another friend of mine, Mike Routson, says, if Jeanette comes back, does he start at second? If so, who do you sit? And Dietrich should play every day, and where? So,
I say he absolutely plays.
Back to your, how long do you wait on Puig?
That's right. Corner outfielders.
And Winker. Because Winker hasn't shown us what we thought he was going to show us either. So, he had a stretch early where he hit a bunch of home runs, but he's not been consistent. So, I think Jeanette gets in the lineup, plays just about every day, and
maybe
unless Puig and Winker get hot, I think you're going to see Dietrich playing both of those.
Yeah,
and giving Joey a day off at first.
Yep.
Farmer's probably going to play less. Giving Joey a day off at first. Scooter probably play 3 or 4 games, take a day off early on. As he's getting back into it.
Scooter's a little bit fiery.
Oh, I think
he helps us with that.
I think they miss him.
Yeah.
I think they miss him. Clubhouse, dugout. I think they do. I don't think there's any question about it. He's sort of the funniest, craziest guy on the team, and I think they do miss that. There's no doubt about that. So, well, thanks, Michael and Mike, for reaching out to us there, giving us some questions. We appreciate that. Let's see else here I have on Twitter. We had the question about trading Iglesias. That comment. Somebody else replied. KBallz 78 KB replied to the question about the possible Iglesias trade. Would you trade him for a top 5 prospect from the Braves? And he says top 3, jump on it. So he says if it's a top 3 guy, do it. He says below that it would take 2 top 10 guys, which I don't think anybody's partnering with 2 top 10 players for a closer.
That's a little unrealistic.
That's a little unrealistic, but so you push. I think you certainly ask for that, and in the end, you got to decide, well, is top 5 good enough? So,
right.
So that's that's somebody. He obviously values Iglesias and thinks we tend to think of our players as worth more than they really are on the market. So we'll see. And then we had the question from Dalton about Puig's offense. And so I think we've covered all the questions. So thanks to everybody for giving us some extra things to talk about, fill in some of the cracks there, what we were talking about. We appreciate that. So, we got away from doing this last year some. So when we started doing our throwback, we used to do our throwback player. So I've got one here with a bit of a kind of a twist on it. So we are approaching trade deadline will be here in a few weeks, and probably the next 2 or 3 weeks we're really going to talk about it. It's really going to heat up, right? So I thought, who's an old player the Reds got? Oh, what about that trade in 71, the huge trade with the Astros?
Yeah.
So I thought we'd start with one guy tonight, and then over the next few shows talk about everybody that was in that trade.
Well, that's cool.
Because the Reds got 5 players in that trade. So on November 29th, 1971, maybe as good a trade as the Reds ever made. I mean, I'm sure there's some others you could argue about. But as far as the guys that brought in, 4 of these 5 guys played on both those World Series champions in 75 and 76. So they got Cesar Geronimo, Ed Armbruster, Jack Billingham, Dennis Menke, and Joe Morgan. And they traded Tommy Helms, Lee May, and Jimmy Stewart. Jimmy Stewart was kind of a throw-in utility guy, but Helms and May were starters.
Yeah.
And they were popular guys, right? And so forth. So that was an interesting thing. So I thought, let's look at Geronimo tonight, see what he brought to the team. We know he played great defense. And speaking of the Jim Day podcast, he did one with Joe Morgan that I listened to. I was working outside all day today. I caught up, listened to like 5 of them. I was working outside all day today. Gave me something to listen to. And he said one thing. First he said it about Ken Griffey Sr., and then he said about Geronimo too. He says those guys, and of course Griffey was the better hitter of the two, but he said they did so many things to help you win games. The stuff that doesn't show up in all the analytics and stuff that everybody tends to be focused on anymore. But he said, those guys, they never missed a cutoff, man. He says, I can't remember Ken Griffey ever missing a cutoff guy. He says, I don't think Geronimo ever did either. I mean,
that's crazy because you watch Major League Baseball today, nobody hits a cutoff.
No, they miss them all the time. And I watched a lot of single A.
Such a fundamental thing.
I watched a lot of single A ball in Dayton too, and you see it there too.
Obviously, coaches don't care if they do or not.
It's not the ticket to the big leagues, and so it happens. But so things like that, and so then I'm like, okay, we know. You remember what he hit in 1976. Which was probably Morgan says that's he says I played on both teams. The 76 team was better because all those guys like Geronimo, Concepcion, Griffey, Foster were all a year older, a little more mature. So he says we were better.
Morgan won MVP both years.
Yeah, both years. And he says some things about 77 that are interesting about the Perez trade and everything. So it's worth a listen as well. But Geronimo in 76 batted .307. I mean,
wow.
he's like a 258 or something career hitter. 250s. He's .307 that year. Do you remember
hitting 8th in the lineup?
Hitting 8th in the lineup. Did you remember? Here's something I didn't remember, and Joe mentioned it on that podcast.
Joe, because you guys know each other.
Well, yes,
first name basis.
I've had some interaction with Joe as well. Yes, now he doesn't know me by name, but
you call him Joe.
But I call him Joe, exactly.
You'll call him
and
Joe.
And there was a show last year. I don't remember what episode, but we talked about that. So it probably shows up if you read the descriptions of the episodes, you probably figure it out. I think I mentioned it there. But anyway, in a 75 series, did you know that Cesar Geronimo hit 2 home runs in that series?
Really?
Yeah, and he like 50-some in his whole career. He hit 2 home runs in that series. So in Game 3, so the series was tied 1-1. Reds won Game 3 6-5, take a 2-1 series lead. In the 5th inning, off Rick Wise, remember that guy?
Yep.
Concepcion and Geronimo hit back-to-back home runs to lead off the 5th to get a 4-1 lead. I mean, that's how good these guys were. those two guys, not known as home run hitters, hit back-to-back home runs off one of the Red Sox best, one of their top 3 guys.
Yeah.
It was him and Tiant and
7-8 hitter.
Yeah, and then 7-8 hitters do that. So that was interesting. So, and then now the other one didn't help him win a game. He hit the other one in Game 6. And we all know that the Red Sox won that. But he hit. Let me see my notes here. Game 6. Oh, also in Game 5. Let me back up a second. Game 3. So he hits the home run to give him a 4-1 lead. Geronimo, that game went 10 innings as well. There were, I think, the 2 extra inning games in that series. Game 3, Game 6, and Morgan. Of course, I remember Morgan he knocked in the winning run in Game 7. He also had a walk-off single in Game 3 in the 10th. He singled off Roger Moret, and Geronimo was the guy that scored. Geronimo led off the 10th with a single. Bases ended up getting loaded. I think somebody else got on somehow, and then I think they had an intentional walk, and Morgan singles in Geronimo to win the game. So he was very involved in the Game 3 victory. You don't win that game without him. Game 6, he leads off the 8 against Louis Tiant, who's still in the game, trailing 5-3.
Because they did that.
They did that back then. Louis Tiant wouldn't be anywhere near the mound in today's game. So he homers to lead off the top of the 8th. It's 6-3. Now, I don't remember it all that well because I was 9 years old, and, what were you? Yeah, just a little younger. So I remember it, but I don't remember all those details, so I looked it up today. So, and of course, I'm sure we were thinking, we're going to the bottom of the 8th. We're up 6-3 with our bullpen.
Right, Clay Carroll comes in, or Raleigh,
Eastwick,
or McInerney.
Yeah, Bourbon, any of those guys. We're going to shut them down the 8th and the 9th. Somebody's going to pitch the 8th. McInerney's probably going to pitch the 9th. All right. Well, Bernie Carbo hits a 3-run homer in the bottom of the 8th. I mean, ties it up,
Yeah.
And then, of course, Fisk hits his home run in the 12th for the 7-6 lead, for the 7-6 victory. And so if you think about it, if Geronimo doesn't hit that home run in the 6th or in the 8th, Bernie Carbo wins that game. There's no Carlton Fisk home run.
That's true.
Isn't that funny? I mean, that's how it works.
Yeah.
There's no Carlton Fisk home run if Cesar Geronimo doesn't hit a home run in the 8th inning. So,
yeah, I mean, we've heard a lot of stories of teams with great players, but they don't mesh, right? They don't play their roles, and the team doesn't get together. I think that was probably what Joe was saying is these guys that weren't the Hall of Famers still played great roles on that team.
Yes, they did.
That's cool.
And the pitching, and I've always said the pitching is very underrated on that team. You look at where they stood in the league. They were top 3. They were 4th in the league in this, 3rd in the league in that as a staff. It was like, they didn't have 4 guys win 20 games, 25 games. They had 10 guys win 10 games. It was sort of that type of thing, And I think Joe said that in that, something like that on that when I was listening to that today. So that's what they were. And he said, I always feel bad for those guys because it's like, and it makes sense because, I mean, you had a Hall of Fame lineup.
Yeah, but there's no Hall of Fame pitchers.
But you had so that's why they overshadowed them. But he said they did not get what they deserve, the due that they deserve. So anyway, so interesting, fun to look back.
Yeah, it is.
The 75 series, and we'll look at on the next show. The next guy listed on the. Sorry, that's okay. So on the next show, we'll look back at the next guy listed in the trade, Ed Armbruster, and
we know what we're going to talk about with him.
Ed Armbruster was very key in a game in the World Series.
That's right.
And Geronimo was involved. It was all, those guys were all involved in that. And so that was. So we'll look back at that, and then we'll talk about the other guys too as we get to them. So I think.
Speaking of trades in 1971, is George Foster also came over in 1971.
Was he in that? Was that the same year?
Yeah, May 1970. I was just looking.
Yeah.
He came over from the Giants. So
right.
Talk about two key trades for people.
Yeah. And then Sparky figured out because how to get Foster in the lineup when he asked Pete to go to third, because Dreesen played. Minky came in that deal and played third base for a couple years, but he wasn't that good. And then Dreesen played it for a year, but Foster still needed to get in the lineup, so that's when Pete
moved to third,
and Dreesen became a bench guy, and Foster started to turn it on, and so the GMs and all those type of people brought people in, but Sparky made decisions. It was his decision to put Pete at third to get George in the lineup. So Sparky deserves a lot of credit for.
He does,
as far as forming and building that team
and identifying how good Foster was,
right, and knowing how he needed to bat guys and so forth. The batting orders and the way he handled the pitching staff.
And Rose deserves a lot of credit for being able to pick up third base.
Oh,
come on.
Yeah, he
wasn't a great athlete.
Was he Brooks Robinson? Was he Nolan Arenado at third base? No.
Enough to win a World Series.
But he was good enough, and he's a ball player. He was going to play it. He was going to play it.
And
well.
he wasn't a great athlete, so he did it. He had to bust his butt to learn third base.
Yeah, he sure did. Okay, episode 40, uniforms.
40.
34 players have worn number 40 in Reds history. A lot of the names I don't recognize. I did
Gotta
not
be pitchers.
Yeah, I did not look down through I didn't see anybody who I knew for sure wasn't a pitcher. But I got 4 names here. The most recent was in 2017-18, and that was Austin Bryce, relief pitcher. 3 other names through the 70s and 80s into 91. 3 other pitchers that anybody would recognize. There were a few other somewhat recognizable names on the list, but I thought these were the 3 most. You got any ideas?
I have no idea.
No idea. Okay, from 88 to 91, Jack Armstrong. And in 90...
Old American boy.
Yeah, in 90, he starts the All-Star game.
Right.
He's great the first half. Wasn't so good the second half. I'm not sure he even pitched in the World Series.
Never good again.
No, that was it. A reliever from 1978 to 81 who has done some coaching. He was the Dragons pitching coach at one time. Still lives around Cincinnati area, I think. Real blonde relief pitcher, Doug Bear.
Oh, yeah.
From 78 to 81.
He was 40, huh?
Yeah. And then a starting pitcher on the 76 team. He played 2 seasons with the Reds, and they traded him.
A starting pitcher in 1976?
Yeah. Rookie of the Year in the National League.
Freddie Norman?
No, he was much older than that. Yeah,
Pat Zachary.
Pat Zachary. He was number 40.
He was Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, he was Rookie of the Year in the National League, and then a couple years with the Reds, and then they started making all those trades. They traded Perez, and that was the downfall of the big red machine. But they traded Zachary as well.
They traded Zachary in that Doug Flynn for Tom Seaver deal.
Yeah. You're right. That was the Seaver deal. So you couldn't argue with getting Seaver,
right?
But the Perez trade was the one that everybody looks back on and complains about and wonders if that cost them a chance at a 3 straight. So, okay. So I think I've covered everything I got on my list. You got anything else besides our trivia answer?
No, yeah. You want trivia answer?
Trivia answer.
I'm sure everybody could not turn off this podcast until I gave this answer.
And I'm sure there's one everybody knew.
Yeah, I'm assuming everybody knows the former University of Michigan shortstop that played for the Reds, of course, Mr. Barry Larkin.
Yes, a Hall of Famer.
Who, by the way, the year before he went to the University of Michigan in 1983 to play in the College World Series, got a base hit off of me in the playoffs of the high school.
Really?
Yeah.
So you were
1982. I was a sophomore in high school.
You playing Moeller, and he got a hit off of you.
Pretty sure second round of the tournament.
Second round. So it was interesting.
It was actually double to the opposite field, to be exact.
So we had a little deja vu time warp last week because I covered a regional final for Daily News. I went down, played at UC to cover Springboro, which is Dayton area team, playing Cincinnati Turpin Spartans.
My alma mater.
That's right. Playing in their first ever regional final.
Certainly not while I was in high school.
Well, you couldn't get past Moeller.
And the coach was?
Don Gullett Jr.
How about that? That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that was pretty. I didn't get to talk to him, but
because Springboro won.
And Springboro beat him like 10-3. And I saw like a weird thing I'd never seen before in a baseball game. And it feels like the last couple of years, the Dragons games and any games I go to, I see something like I've never seen that before. It's like every third game that happens. So at this game, kid for Springboro hits one over the fence to put him up. We thought 5-0. He scores. It's 5-0. They celebrate 3-run homer. Well, upon appeal, he was out because they said he missed home plate. The umpire said he missed home plate. So he suddenly had a 2-run triple, 4-2. So anyway, I know I'm getting on a tangent here, but I thought it was interesting because I texted.
Wow.
I texted you the pictures from I was standing down by the dugout taking pictures of the game, and I shot with my phone, and there's in the Turpin, and you're like, what? Say the uniforms have not changed.
It looks exactly the same. The same T on the hat, the same Spartan on the breast. I'm like, you're kidding me? Redesigned the unis a little. All right, so back to the trivia question.
So Barry Larkin.
Of course, Barry Larkin, which I think most people kind of remember, he was with Michigan.
Yeah.
So the University of Michigan's first baseman was a gentleman by the name of Hal Morris, which I faintly remember that he was a Michigan guy. The one I didn't know was the University of Michigan's third baseman was a Mr. Chris Sabo.
Yes, yeah. And so Larkin and Sabo are the two that I was pretty sure of. I knew Larkin, I was pretty sure of Sabo.
I didn't know about Sabo.
But Morris escaped me.
Crazy.
Yeah. So, and those were, I mean, they weren't just like three guys on the team. They were three regulars.
Key guys,
right? Yeah, pretty regular. I mean, first base was, Benzinger played a lot of first base too on that team. But
no wonder Michigan was in the College World Series.
Yeah, they had a lot of talent. So
it's kind of fun.
Yeah. All right, very good. So, well, happy trails to Kim. Who gets back soon, and we can get him on the next show. And we hope the month of June is going to be really kind to our red legs here.
Yes, we do.
June and
get these bats hot.
First part of July. Yeah, it'd be nice. It warms up. And
it could happen in a couple weeks. It really could.
It could. I mean, they had, not this past week, but maybe the week before, it was like it was waking up. It felt like they scored a lot of runs. But then it's sort of, just sort of.
They need like an 8 out of 10 streak,
Oh yeah. They can't get that big winning streak. So, but there's always the future.
That's right,
and it could happen.
Hope springs eternal.
And we're not giving up on these guys. We're disappointed with the record. Not disappointed in the pitching. Not really disappointed in the effort. Just. Man, we gotta get some guys producing, hitting the ball, and we also gotta hope that we have a manager who will have the guts to make some tough decisions if he has to make them,
and the front office that lets him do it. Right?
Yeah, it lets him put the lineup on the field he thinks is going to win, and not be afraid to bench somebody if he has to, or cut somebody's playing
even
time.
A Puig.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm all for giving the guy. Maybe the next couple of weeks still, but until Jeanette gets back. But when Jeanette gets back, things get more crowded, as we said. And that's when you gotta make those decisions.
I think we're on the end of our giving people a chance. Time period.
Yeah, I do too. I think right now it's like, well, who else is going to do it? Because nobody else is hitting either, so you might as well play Puig. But when Jeanette comes back, if he's hitting, and you're going to. Jeanette's going to play. You're going to give him some time to work it out, get going. But hopefully he'll be hot, and then they make some tough decisions. So, but hopefully Puig makes it easy and starts hitting. And okay, we're going to keep you in right field because now you're
hitting the ball.
You're being Yasiel Puig.
If he's hitting 250 and has 15, 20 home runs, we're
by happy. Then. Yeah, if he's raised that average up,
I know Kim likes 270, but I'll take 250.
If he can hit 270 the rest of the season,
Yeah.
I don't care if he gets it to 270. If he can just hit 270 the rest of the season, then the Reds are going to be a much better team.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that. Because if he does that, his power numbers will be up, his slugging will be up, his on base will be up. Everything will be better if he starts hitting. So, All right. Well, we've gone on long enough, so we look forward to getting all three of us back together next time. And so now for the exciting finish. Go Reds!